Help support Name Explained by leaving a like and a comment, sharing this video, and by subscribing to the channel. There are around 380 million speakers of different Semitic languages. These are the languages that made their start in Western Asia and include the likes of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Tigrinya. Though undoubtedly the most well-known of Semitic languages has to be Arabic. This popular language spoken primarily across the Arabian Peninsula, North Africa, and its diaspora around the globe. Arabic is so widely spoken that there are even different versions of it, with some being considered their own languages. What's unique about Arabic and other Semitic languages are the script they use. They have their own written form unique to them, unlike say the many languages across Europe and the globe that use the ever-present Latin alphabet. These unique scripts and alphabets are one of the defining features of Arabic and Semitic languages as a whole. Although yes, many of these languages can be transcribed into the Latin alphabet, like other non-Latin using languages like Japanese and Hindi. These Romanized forms of the languages aren't their natural state. Make no mistake, Arabic languages and Latin languages are worlds apart. So what's really strange is that there is one Semitic/Arabic language on our planet that does actually use the Latin alphabet as their default script, this being the language of Maltese. The language of Maltese is of course native to the small island nation of Malta and is spoken by just over 500,000 people. Having Maltese heritage myself makes this language extra special, so apologies if I'm being a tad self-indulgent. I know minimal Maltese myself, but still, it's good to reflect on your roots from time to time. Anyway, despite being a relatively small language found primarily on a very small chain of islands, it is a hugely fascinating one, because as mentioned, it is the only Arabic language that is written with the Latin alphabet. How did this huge anomaly that goes against all other Semitic languages even happen? Well, it of course all has to do with the geography and history of the island that makes up modern day Malta. Malta resides in a really unique spot on our globe. It is nestled neatly between the now Italian island of Sicily and the nation of Tunisia in North Africa. From its location alone, you can start to get a good idea as to why this Arabic language is written with the Latin script. The whole nation has this really unique Mediterranean meets Arabian vibe to it, not really found anywhere else on the planet. It's also a stunning place, with the city of Valletta being breathtaking. Though once again, that might just be me being a tad biased. This Trans-Medo-Arab, which yes is a term I just invented, vibe is of course seen in the Maltese language too. When simply listening to the language, it sounds a lot like Arabic. Some of the words are even identical. Most noticeably, numbers in Maltese are the exact same as they are in Arabic. What's even more startling is that the Maltese word for God is Allah, coming from the Arabic word Allah. It's wild to me that an incredibly Christian country like Malta is using the name Allah for their God. According to Wikipedia, most Maltese speakers are able to understand around 1/3 of Arabic that is being spoken to them. This makes its use of the Latin alphabet even more strange. The ultimate origin of the Maltese language is with the Phoenicians. These were ancient people who spoke the now extinct Phoenician language, which was a Semitic language. They arrived on the island in around 750 BC, and their language became the ultimate basis of modern Maltese, cementing it as a Semitic/Arabic language. These islands wouldn't simply stay Phoenician, however. Between then and now, a huge variety of different cultures and empires have held control of Malta, with all these different cultures bringing their own language with them and affecting the language on the island and how it is written. The islands eventually came under the rule of Carthage, who did speak Phoenician among other languages, but this rule came to an end in 218 BC. It was in this year that the Romans claimed the islands of Malta for their own, in the early days of the Second Punic War. Slight tangent, but of course one of the most famous facts about this war is how Hannibal Barca took his war elephants across the Alps. Now, how does this relate to Malta? Well, prehistoric Malta used to be home to the now unfortunate extinct pygmy elephant. I'm never going to skip the chance to talk about adorable mini elephants, though I can't imagine they would be too useful in warfare. Anyway, with Malta now under firm Roman rule, this would have been the first time that the Latin alphabet would have been used on the island. This Roman rule eventually morphed into Byzantine rule, much like how the Roman Empire itself morphed into the Byzantine Empire. This allowed Latin to still be a dominant language on the island. This Roman/Byzantine rule of the island lasted all the way until 870 AD. It was in this year that Arab rule finally returned to Malta. Of course, there are many different groups of Arabic speakers, with the ones who claimed Malta being a group called the Alklabids, who were from modern-day Tunisia, which makes sense due to how close Malta is to the nation. Now once again being ruled by Arabic speakers, Malta and the Maltese language started shifting to being more Arabic. However, a written form wouldn't come into being for quite some time, as we shall see. What we know already from Malta's history is it has been tossed to and fro between those who speak Arabic and those who speak Latin. We are already starting to see how this language came to be an Arabic language written in Latin. However, the single biggest influence of the language would happen in 909 AD. It was in this year that the islands that make up Malta would come under the rule of Sicily. Now Sicily is just an island belonging to Italy. However, back then things were a tad different. Sicily and Malta's history and languages run somewhat parallel with one another, so it's vital to briefly explain this island's history with languages too. In 909, the island was actually under Arabic rule and named the Emirate of Sicily. This period of its history started in 831 AD, when Arabs from Ifriqiya from northern Africa claimed this land. Then in 909 it was this same emirate that claimed Malta too. Prior to Arab rule, Sicily had its own language, the Sicilian Romance language, which is still spoken there to this day. However, under Arab rule, Sicily found itself becoming home to a unique variety of Arabic, known as Sicular Arabic. This was a version of Arabic heavily influenced by the Romance language being spoken there. It was, however, written with the Arabic script. When Sicily claimed Malta in 909, Sicular Arabic came along too. This dialect of Arabic is seen as the biggest influence of modern Maltese, with this Arabic dialect, along with a mixture of Arabic and Latin tongues already being spoken on the island, seen as forming the modern Maltese language. The Emirate of Sicily, along with Malta, fell to the Normans in 1091 AD. This meant that the aforementioned Sicular Arabic had over 100 years to evolve on the island. However, whilst being under Norman rule, Malta didn't start speaking French all of a sudden. Due to Malta's relative isolation, its Norman conquest didn't affect the language all too much. People carried on speaking Sicular Arabic and it evolved into the Maltese as we know it today. In fact, Sicular Arabic became extinct in the 13th century, but Maltese has carried on being spoken to this very day as its sole surviving heir. Maltese did carry on changing, however, and despite being an Arabic language, the years spent under various Latin influences made the Latin alphabet stick around. From the Normans, Malta found itself under the influence of Italy due to its location, and of course would eventually become a crown colony of the British Empire. It belonged to the British from 1813 all the way until 1964, becoming fully independent in 1974. This meant that Maltese became heavily influenced by English too, and the language is still widely spoken in the nation, and is even an official language there. Today, the three most popular languages of Malta are Maltese, English, and Italian. But from its vast and long history, being ruled by Latin speakers and Arabic speakers, it's easy to see how Maltese became the sole Arabic language written in the Latin script. We don't know when exactly they started using the Latin script, however. For so long, Maltese was solely a spoken language. But the earliest written evidence we have of Maltese comes from the 15th century and is called the Il Cantilena, a poem written by philosopher Petru Carajo. What's interesting is that while it is written in the Latin script, showing us that this script had been cemented as the script for Maltese by the 15th century, it uses no loanwords from Romance languages. This gives us a unique view into medieval Maltese as being purely Arabic, though written in Latin. It's also worth highlighting that the Maltese alphabet wasn't standardized until 1924. By this time, the Latin script had been cemented in the nation, and at this time, Malta was under British rule, which might have influenced the choice to stick to the Latin alphabet. The modern language, however, doesn't just use the Latin alphabet verbatim. It has some unique features in its script. Most noticeable are diacritic marks of a single dot placed on top of versions of the letters of C, G, and Z. This dot on top of C in Maltese makes it sound somewhat like a CH sound in English. The G with a dot on top makes a similar sound to a J, and the Z that looks like this makes a somewhat standard Z sound. Though at the end of words it sounds like an S. More unique in Maltese is a form of the letter H with a cross over the top of it. This sounds like a standard H. This crossed H is also used with a G as a single letter, though apparently most of the time it is silent. Unless it's at the end of a word, then it sounds like a normal H. That's just a handful of the more unique characters of Maltese and how they are used. If you haven't got the point by now, this is a really unique language, one unlike any other on the planet. From powers that use the Latin alphabet like the Romans and Normans, to those who speak Arabic like the Phoenicians and Sicilian Arabs. All this allowed us to reach this point where we have an Arabic language written with the Latin alphabet. Who would have thought that such a small island could have such a deep and rich history and extremely interesting language? Not bad going at all, Malta. Name Explained depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/NameExplain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm NameExplainYT, and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.